Hello everyone, and welcome to BHD Studios, and enjoy the plethora of camera bodies and lenses that I have laid out on this table for your viewing pleasure, as well as my beautiful X Pro 3 with all the little accoutrements on here to make it look even sexier than it already is. In this video, I thought I would do something a little bit different, kind of a buying guide for those of you that kind of lusted for this brand new Fujifilm X-H2S, and perhaps you're thinking, you know what, I am a stills photographer, I don't need the S model, I'm gonna wait for the non-S model, the one with the 40 megapixels that will be announced in September X Summit with Fujifilm. But until then, you may be wondering, well, you know, what other cameras can I buy instead? Well, I do have right over here the X-H1, the OG, the original X-H1, as well as the previous flagship camera from Fujifilm is the X-T4. So perhaps these two cameras might be an option for you. And if you did actually pre-order the X-H2S, you may have one of these two cameras and you want to sell it. And so this video is sponsored by K-E-H Camera. They actually kind of pitched this idea to me and I said, that sounds awesome. And so thank you so much K-E-H for sponsoring this video. K-E-H is the original reseller of professional, collectible, and everyday gear for camera lovers everywhere since 1979. They purchase gear directly from photographers like us. We are camera nerds and so are they. They renew and resell at fair prices, and they truly become part of an endless cycle of creativity, community, and opportunity because they don't let used cameras go to waste. They make sure that they buy from you that don't need it, and they sell to you that actually want these cameras. So thank you so much, KEH. So let's start this video now. Alright, so let's just kind of quickly go over what's on this table here. So this is, again, the brand new Fujifilm X-H2S. Doesn't use the classic eyelet lugs, but the slotted lugs, and so I'm using these Peak Design anchor system. And as well, this is the brand new 18 to 120 power zoom lens, fantastic lens. This is the 50 millimeter f1 right here. Look at that, f1 right there, honking piece of glass, very narrow focus used lens, nice beautiful bokeh, but does suffer a little bit from chromatic aberration. This is the X-T4. Awesome camera. This is actually what I'm shooting this video on, and it's been my main studio product, and as well overhead I'm actually using an X-T4 right now to shoot this video. And this is the actually really cool lens here from Viltrox, a 13mm f1.4, and have a video coming up for this on this lens. I do have an article up at Fujilove on this, but this lens here, Fujifilm should be making a lens like this. And right here is the X-H1, the OG. I like it because if it has the classic articulating screen. We'll talk a lot about this camera in just a couple of seconds here. But anyways, X-H1, still a beautiful looking camera. And right here is one of my favorite lenses, the 10 to 24. F4, great for vlogging, great for landscape, street photography. Just if I had to take one lens when I travel, it'll definitely be the 10 to 24, and it has been for the past 5 or 6 years for me. And right here, the brand new, the new series of the Fuji Luxes. This is the 18mm f1.4, fantastic lens, kind of chunky, has that kind of like clicking, like loose element sound, but that is normal because of the floating lens element. There's magnets in there that keep it rigid when you have it turned on, but when it's off, it makes that sound. And finally, we have the Surui anamorphic 50mm f1.8. Great lens, really do cool stuff here. Anamorphics, maybe I could do another video, but you can see that little bluish tint to it. But it squeezes images and then you de-squeeze in post. And so that's kind of what's laid out here. But let's start off actually. So let's just say you decide that you tend to buy the one model older, because when something new comes out, like the X-H2S, I'm sure some of you guys had this and decided, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to trade this one in. That's fantastic. Sometimes people want the latest and greatest. Some people actually need the latest and greatest. 7 stops of IBIS, the latest generation sensor and processor. It's a stack sensor, so you got a lot of throughput. You actually can now use CF Express Type B card. So here we have a per gear card on here, up to 1600 read speeds, 1600 megabits per second, and this is a 1 terabyte card. And so you get crazy speeds out of this if you need to have those crazy speeds, but not everyone does. And as well as a full array of I/O here, including microphone in, headphone out, a full size HDMI, again, if you need it, and USB-C Gen 2, I can't remember the type, but it's a fast USB-C connection. So again, everything is faster, slicker, brighter, sexier on this brand new X-H2S when it comes to specs and functionality, but that doesn't mean that these cameras aren't the right cameras for you. So let's start off with the X-T4. Right now, if you go to KEH, I think you could, I mean, depending on the condition and depending on what things are part of the kit, like does it come with the grip, does it not come with the grip, it's, you know, around $1,400 US. We're talking already $1,000 savings. This is $2,500 brand new right now, the X-H2S. So $1,400 plus or minus depending on what you get with the kit, but awesome deal. Like I said, this is still my current camera that I'm using right now. I'm shooting this video using an X-T4, and you know what you get from this is pretty much almost other than throughput. Okay, other than throughput, you're getting most of what's already in here. You get the best balance of power, features, function, and you get that classic Fujifilm styling and ergonomics. So you get all the dials and the buttons that you expect on a camera like this. Where the X-H2S, you can see there's one PSAM dial, and that's it. There's no shutter speed dial. There is no, notice that the ISO dial here also has your drive dial just beneath. And then over here, you have your shutter speed dial, and then you have your video and stills dial just underneath. And then you have a dedicated full-time exposure compensation dial on the back here. And so it has, you know, more dials on this camera here, and it has a fully articulating screen. If that's something that you want, if you want to do some talking head or selfies or whatever, and if you're out and about and shooting and you use your EVF most of the time, you can flip it back and you don't have to worry about scratching that lens over there. Same megapixels as the X-H2S, 26 megapixels in both these. Sensor is different. This is a backside illuminated sensor, and it's a CMOS sensor, 26 megapixels. But this one here has that stack technology for faster throughput, but like I said, a lot of us don't need that faster throughput. And I did testing, ISO tests between these two. I'll maybe insert it here. I couldn't see a significant difference. I know JPEGs will be better on here with the HEIF, a 10-bit JPEG. Well, not even JPEGs, it's the HEIF file. But other than that, I mean, I couldn't see a huge difference between the X-H2S and the X-T4. Uses the same battery, the new NPW 235 battery that actually was introduced on the X-T4. And so that is fantastic. So you don't have to worry that you'll be left behind using the older battery. And as I mentioned before, it has similar performance, including ISO performance. And autofocus, obviously, is just more advanced and faster, better face detect and eye detect. But again, for a lot of us stills photographers, we don't need blazing fast autofocus, especially if you're doing landscape or things that aren't moving super fast. But I mean, you know, like people complain about the autofocus speed on the X-T4. I've found it fast enough. I think people just don't really know how to use their camera and setting the various custom autofocus speeds with this. And if I need to do another video, I can help you set that up. But once you have it set up the way you want to shoot, works out perfectly. Has 6.5 stops of IBIS versus 7, so we're talking only half a stop difference. I've handheld images down to 1/3 of a second using this camera, no problem. So it's great to have IBIS. In fact, all three of these cameras here have IBIS, and that's one of the reasons why I think these three cameras kind of match. You know, like I said, they were all flagships at the time that they were all launched, but 6.5 stops of IBIS. And if you do shoot some video, you are still getting very good video on this. You're getting H.265, 420, 10-bit internal up to 400 megabits per second versus I think 720 megabits per second. H.265 is 422 on this. And you could do ProRes and RAW via HDMI. But again, most of us still shooters, I think, like right now I'm shooting this video 4K MP4. That's all I use, 100 megabits per second. And that's just good enough for me. So this camera here is already overkill for me. And for you, if you never shoot video, then who cares? But if you do need the odd time to shoot video, 4K H.265 420 internal, 400 megabits per second, that's still pretty darn good. All right, so X-T4, fantastic camera. I highly recommend. It is still my current main camera, so by no means is this outdated or replaced by this camera here. This is still a current camera, and it is awesome. All right, now it's time to talk about the X-H1. Now, in terms of ergonomics, I still, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I still think this is the best ergonomic. This is based on the GFX 50S, the original GFX 50. If you put those two cameras next to each other, they're sibling cameras. And I still think this is the best ergonomic, the best overall design Fujifilm X series body that they've ever come up with. And so I really like how this feels in hand. And if you are a stills photographer, this is a fantastic camera. And again, on KEH, again, based on what the kit comes with, does it come with the flash? Does it come with the grip? You know, it's between $700 and $750. So, you know, $2,500, $1,400, $1,500, $700. So for $700, $750, this is a bargain. This was, I think, about $1,800 when it came out brand new. And so going back to the ergonomics, this uses that classic Fujifilm setup. You have the ISO dial here and the drive dial down here, just like the X-T4. Or really, the X-T4 is like this camera right over here. It has a beautiful EVF. Now, not as nice as this one here. This has 5.76 million dot, up to 120 frames per second refresh. The X-H1 has basically the same EVS as the X-T4. It's 0.75 versus 0.8, but 0.75, so still quite large and immersive, and it sticks out like this. So if you have glasses, and I know some people that use the more prosumer cameras complain that it's hard to see in the sunlight, this has a nice chunky eye cup here, rubberized eye cup, so you don't have to worry about scratching your glasses. And it is 3.69 million dot, 0.75 magnification, up to 100 FPS. So still very decent EVF to use. And it has a tank-like build. In fact, I still think that this is still built better than these other cameras. When they first put IBIS in here, they had to make this bigger than the X-T2. And because they had to make it bigger, they did a few things, upgrades in here, including like thicker paint, stronger wear-resistant paint, as well as 25% thicker magnesium alloy, which kind of makes this heavy, but it's heavy with a purpose, right? This camera here, of all these cameras, if you drop them, which you shouldn't drop these things, but if you did, this has a higher chance of survival than any other Fujifilm X series camera. And I don't want to say this, but you know, this might be the last of its kind for Fujifilm. That kind of the OG classic Fujifilm style ergonomics here, because this was considered their first hybrid. Because if you notice, it doesn't have an exposure compensation now. You do have to press this button here and use the rear or the front dial to do exposure compensation. And you can also program this so one of these buttons can be. And also the new X-H2S got rid of the, see how you can use the back dial or the front dial as a custom function button? Well, that's gone on the X-H2S. X-T4, X-H1 still has it, but this may be the last of this kind of style. So this is kind of a digital classic. Like, I am not gonna sell this. I'm gonna keep this for myself. I love this. I might even change this sensor to an infrared sensor and just have a lot of fun shooting with this. It's a 24 megapixels. So sure, this is like 5th generation, 4th generation, 3rd generation sensor processor, but in terms of megapixels, if you just care about image quality, guys, we're only talking a 2 megapixel difference between this and the latest, greatest from Fujifilm. So that's not a huge deal. You can still take fantastic photos. In fact, some of my favorite photos ever has been taken with this camera right here. And one of the big reasons why I love this over the X-T2 was because that it had IBIS, 5.5 stops of IBIS. And so, you know, 1 stop less than this, 1.5 stops different from this. But again, for a camera that is $700, $750, you are still getting 5.5 stops of IBIS. And if you have a lens that has OIS, it will work in collaboration with the lens to stabilize your, I mean, it doesn't add, like, meaning it makes it 10 stops of IBIS? No, but some types of movements are better with OIS and some types of stabilization is better with IBIS. And one of the biggest distinguishing factors between these two cameras here, and something that a lot of Fujifilm photographers have been lamenting, is their traditional 3-way articulating screen. Now, if you are a stills photographer, and just imagine I have a lens on here, you want your your lens and your LCD screen, and of course your EVF lines up directly with your lens, right? And it also lines up directly with the LCD screen. With these two cameras, the LCD screen sticks out the side, so it doesn't line up. And so I find it a little bit odd. And also the three-way means it also goes this way. And people kind of complained about this before, but if you are shooting portrait, right, or vertical, it makes sense that you can articulate it this way here, so you can still look straight down and you are still reasonably lined up to your lens right here. So this, I hope Fujifilm brings this back to the X-T5 maybe, but if not, again, like I said, this may be the last of its generation, where it has a D-pad, a joystick, uses a three-way articulating screen. Like this and the X-T3, which we'll talk about a little bit later, may be the last of this breed of camera. But between the X-T3 and the X-H1, remember, this has IBIS, the X-T3 does not. Now, this camera does use the older MPW 126S battery right here. The advantage of this battery, it's plentiful. If you have a X100V or any other previous model before the X-T4, your batteries will all work with this. Now, there is one little trick that you can do with this X-H1 that you cannot do with the other cameras, is its vertical battery grip. Now, first of all, this actually does give you some extra features in this boost mode here. With heat dissipation, you get higher frame rates and longer video. I think you get 30 minutes of video versus 15 minutes of video when you put this on to the X-H1, if that makes a big difference to you. But that's not why I bought this. I bought this vertical control grip and booster because it does give you extra features, is that, look at that. So you do get this little AC adapter, and you plug it in here, and guess what this becomes? This becomes a portable battery charger. So whenever I traveled, if I went to Hong Kong, if I went wherever I went, and I had, let's just say, 3 batteries, MPW 126 batteries in my pocket, and then back in my hotel or apartment, I'd be charging 2 more batteries inside here, using the battery grip. So I would take this battery grip with me at all times, minimum just as a battery charger. But if I needed to be able to shoot vertically, or if I needed the extra boost, then I would bring this with me as well. So that's kind of a trick when it comes to the X-H1, is using the vertical battery grip and booster as a travel charger. And another way that I actually use the X-H1 is I use it in conjunction with these adapters. This is from K&F Concept, but you can use any other brand. But put my Minolta glass on here. So look at this. Look how fun that looks. So if you want a dedicated camera that you just basically put an adapter on, so if you have old Nikon or old Canon or old Minolta glass, yes, you do get a 1.5 times crop, but this is a 58mm f1.4. And for those of you wondering, why don't I have the f1.2? I tested that lens. It's super soft, the f1.2. This is a sharp and beautiful lens. And because this works to maybe about a 90mm on the X-H1, this makes an awesome portrait, either a portrait video, kind of a talking head lens, or just a great lens for portraiture for stills. And so that's kind of primarily how I use the X-H1 as my backup when I need IBIS. So I often go out the X-T4 and I take the X-H1 as my backup because of the IBIS, as well as just adapting fun lenses and just kind of doing fun things with this camera. Because I mean, for half the price of the X-T4, you're getting a lot of the performance, especially when it comes to image quality. You have most of the film simulations. Eterna was introduced in here. This has acros. It doesn't have the classic neg, which I love, but it has classic chrome, Provia, Astia, has all the main ones that you probably will need, and classic chrome. So, as long as I have classic chrome, I think I'm pretty darn happy. So let's put the X-H1 down now with the Minolta lens and the adapter, and let's just kind of conclude. X-H2S, awesome camera, and if you are the type to typically buy one generation before, then consider the X-T4. It is still my primary camera. And for what I do as a YouTuber and as a photographer, it's still way more than I actually need. Like, I don't shoot 15 frames per second or 30 frames per second. I don't shoot H.265 420 10-bit internal. I don't need video specs like that. And so this is a great option, and save yourself about $1,000. And if you don't mind going a little bit older, then get the X-H1. It is still a fantastic camera. It is still my backup camera to do tons of things. IBIS is still super effective. And like I said, I've taken some of my favorite photos of all time using the X-H1. It's still one of my favorite cameras, and I will never sell this because I just love this camera. And for some honorable mentions, I kind of started off with the X Pro 3. Now, this does not have IBIS. These three cameras do have IBIS, but if you are primarily stills, you like using tripod, or you're shooting during the day, the X Pro 3 is awesome. It has an articulating screen. It's a weird articulating screen. It articulates straight down, so when you're not using it, you're protecting the back. If you and it, you can see the film simulation. Look at that classic neg here. But if you do use it, it is straight down this way like this, and I like that. It lines up this way here, so it's kind of fun and discreet to be able to use it. But if you don't like that, highly recommend the X Pro 2. That is a favorite amongst classic Fujifilm shooters. I think the X Pro 2, you cannot go wrong. And the X Pro 2 does share the same sensor and processor as the X-H1. And another camera I was going to recommend, other than the X-T4, is the X-T3. So same sensor, same processor as the X-T4, uses a slightly different version of the firmware. So this has a few more tricks up its sleeve, but basically it performs the same as the X-T4, but it uses the standard articulating screen like this, the three-way like that. So the X-H1 and the X-T3 uses classic Fujifilm digital interface. And so if that's what you want, if you don't want the articulating screen of this, and again, save even more money, again, versus the X-T4, get the X-T3. Also, the X-T30, I think, is a really great camera. There was a Mark II version, so I have a feeling like KEH might have a few of the X-T30s in stock, and that is basically a prosumer version of the X-T3, which I don't have here, but fantastic. It has the front rear dial controls. It has all the interfaces. Again, it's a classic Fujifilm camera interface. X-T30, love the camera, highly recommend. So let me know down in the comments section if you have any questions or any thoughts on my suggestions with the X-T4 or the X-H1. And thank you so much, KEH, for sponsoring this video. KEH is the original camera re-commerce company serving the photographic community since 1979 and has become the largest curated market for field-tested, expert-graded photo and video equipment in the industry, with over 60,000 items in stock, up to 40% below retail, 100% KEH approved, appraised, graded, renewed, and resold. Now you can phone or schedule a video chat for a more accurate quote on your gear. So if you are upgrading to the X-H2S, then you want to know how much you can get for your X-T4 or your X-H1. Well, you can do a phone or video quote, a 21-day return or exchange policy. So if you have buyer's regret, like, maybe I should have got this other camera instead, you have 21 days to return or exchange, 180-day warranty. And so that's almost half a year. And so that's one of the things about buying used. People worry, well, what if it breaks or something? Well, first of all, they grade their cameras when it comes in. They clean, they repair, and they service these things. And on top of that, you get a 180-day warranty. So if something does go wrong, send it back to KH and they will make sure that you are taken care of. And because of that, they are renewing with care, one-of-a-kind camera, sustainable and exchangeable. And so I will have affiliate links down below. You will get 5% more if you trade in with the affiliate links, and if you buy, you will get 5% off. If you are buying and selling at the same time, you will get a total of 10% if you use the links down below. And so again, thank you so much, KEH, for sponsoring this video. Enjoy the plethora of beautiful cameras that we have here, and of course we will close off with a click. So thank you so much for watching, and happy shooting.